What if I told you that the revolution that created our age of information overload didn't start with a keyboard or a mouse, but with a simple green button on a machine most of us have never even seen? Well, today we're going to unpack the story of how that one button and the machine it was attached to changed absolutely everything. To really understand the miracle of that machine, you first have to understand the misery that came before it. We're going to go back to what you could call the dark ages of duplication, a time when sharing information was just a slow, messy, and deeply frustrating nightmare. Okay, so before the 1950s, if you needed a copy of something, good luck. Your options were just awful. You had messy carbon paper that could only make a few smudged duplicates at a time, or you had these really complex photographic techniques that meant dark rooms, vats of chemicals, and people who were specially trained to operate them. But every single one of these methods had one defining, terrible trait. They all produced wet copies. Copies you couldn't touch, copies that had to be hung up on a clothesline to dry, completely jamming up the flow of work. This quote right here is fascinating because it shows you the mindset back then. This was a real question from business leaders in the early 20th century. For hundreds of years, the word copy pretty much meant forgery or a fake. So the idea of mass duplication wasn't just seen as pointless, it was suspicious. Why would any honest person need to spread that much paperwork around? What are you up to? So, the solution didn't come from some huge corporate lab trying to make a slightly better wet copy. Nope. It came from a lone inventor, and it was brought to life by a tiny little company that made one of the craziest, most audacious bets in the history of business. Let me introduce you to Chester Carlson. He wasn't some big-shot corporate scientist. He was a patent attorney who was just personally, deeply fed up with the nightmare of copying documents for his job. So, he decided to invent a solution himself, tinkering away in a small lab in his Astoria, Queens apartment, which was, of course, right above a bar. On October 22, 1938, Carlson made the world's very first xerographic image. He called the process a clunky name, electrophotography, but we know it by the much better name that came later, xerography, from the Greek words for dry writing. It was perfect, but when he took this incredible invention to the big guys, we're talking IBM, Kodak, they rejected him over and over and over. They just couldn't see a market for it. Finally, a small, struggling photopaper company called Haloid decided, what the heck, let's take a chance. And they didn't just take a chance. Oh no, they bet everything they had, and then a whole lot more. To develop and actually sell Carlson's idea, Haloid spent $75 million. To put that number into perspective for you, just look at this chart. $75 million wasn't just a big investment. It was double the company's total earnings during that entire period. This was not a calculated risk. It was a Hail Mary, a bet the company move, built on pure faith. Executives mortgaged their homes. It was a bet that would lead to either total bankruptcy or complete world domination. Their belief in this was so absolute that they remade their entire identity around the technology. First, they became Haloid Xerox, and then they just dropped the first part. The company became the invention. And that insane bet, it produced a machine that was just as wild as the bet itself. And in 1959, that gamble finally paid off with the release of a machine that would come to define the modern office. But this thing was a complete paradox. It was a technological marvel that was also deeply, almost comically flawed. And yet it was adored by absolutely everyone who used it. The Xerox 914 was an absolute monster. It weighed over 300 kilograms, that's 650 pounds. It was the size of a desk, and it was more complicated than a car. It broke down all the time. It was famous for overheating. It would start smoking, and oh yeah, it often caught fire. This happened so frequently, in fact, that Xerox actually shipped every single unit with its own small fire extinguisher. Seriously, right next to the instruction manual. And yet, despite the very real risk of literally burning down your office, users loved this machine. They were passionate about it. Why? Because for the first time in human history, anyone, not a specialist, just anyone, could walk up, put a document on the glass, push a button, and get a perfect, dry copy on regular paper. That convenience wasn't just a feature. It was a miracle. It was a superpower. And it was worth any risk. But the genius here wasn't just in the technology. It was in the business model, which was just as revolutionary. See, the 914 cost a fortune, around $27,000 back then, so nobody could afford to buy it. So Xerox didn't sell them. They leased them for a monthly fee. and then charged a few cents for every single copy made. This made it a no-brainer for any company to get one, and for Xerox, it created this massive, unstoppable stream of recurring revenue. They basically invented the hardware subscription model we see everywhere today. So once the 914 was in every office, something bigger started to happen. It wasn't just about making work more efficient anymore. The photocopier fundamentally changed our entire relationship with information, and it kicked off this phenomenon that some historians call copying mania. People who used it said that pushing that button was like a narcotic. A whole new cultural belief just appeared out of nowhere, that a document wasn't really finished, wasn't real or valuable until it had been duplicated and sent to everybody. Information went from a carefully controlled trickle to a massive flood that anyone could create. And this sudden, incredible flood of information created a huge new problem. Teachers and librarians were some of the first to realize, hey, we can buy one expensive textbook and just copy the important chapters for every student. I mean, for schools, this was a massive money saver. But for publishers, it felt like an existential threat. They were terrified the book itself would just vanish. And this is where it all connects back to us, right now. That original conflict set the stage for every single copyright battle we've had since. The fight over the Xerox 914 in the 70s is the exact same fight we have today over digital music, movies, and now AI-generated content. The technology changes, but the fundamental tension is identical. When duplication is easy and free, what is the original even worth? The legacy of Chester Carlson's invention is the world we're all living in right now, a world of frictionless, limitless copies. From deep fakes to AI-written articles, we are grappling with the consequences of a revolution that started in an apartment above a bar in Queens. So the question that machine leaves us with is this. When you can generate or duplicate anything perfectly at zero cost, what gives the original any value at all? What makes it real?